Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. We are very excited to be back with you guys. It's been a little bit with us on Christmas break, and we had two games occur since our last episode. So today we'll be going over that Yale game a little bit, and of course, Wichita State game from Saturday. And we're also going to evaluate a little bit where Kansas basketball stands heading into conference play. So without further ado, here we go. Let's do this. Episode 13 of The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast. Welcome back, everybody. And like we mentioned, Kansas with two games since we've been back on here last. First, you had Yale right before the Christmas break, the game before Kansas got a little bit of time off. And then we got Wichita State from Saturday. First thing, we're just going to talk really briefly about the Yale game. Kansas ends up winning 75-60. It was actually a pretty close game with Yale all the way through until a little run by Kansas in the last 6 minutes or so of the game with a three from Kevin McCullough. Timberlake, they got a little run going to close that one off. But what do we think about the Yale game, Jackson? Kansas run into a little bit of trouble before the holiday break.
Indeed. That was the classic game right before break. Kansas kind of sleepwalked through the first half. We've seen it in years past. It happened last year. Grady Dick had to save us from that last year. And this year it was Kevin McCullough, and man, did he have a game. Yale hit a couple, I think they hit 5 threes in the first half. So that was a little concerning, but overall, Kansas was really good defensively. Shots weren't really falling, except for Kevin McCullough. That man was on a mission. That was a complete, okay, my team doesn't have it tonight. I need to take over because can't pick up a quad 3 loss at home right before Christmas. I mean, and the first half was ugly, but as always, Kansas found a way to pull it out in the second half.
Yeah, Yale is, they were picked to win the Ivy League. They're 106 in KenPom right now. So really, Yale wasn't a pushover team by any stretch. But you're right. Kevin McCullough went absolutely nuclear in this one. 34 points, 11 of 18 shooting, perfect from the free throw line, 6 rebounds and 4 assists. Kevin McCullough just continues to do it. Another kind of storyline from this game was DeJuan Harris getting going a little bit with his 10 points, 6 assists. Hunter Dickinson was actually slowed down a lot. He only shot 9 shots in this game, 8 points, 10 rebounds for Hunter. But overall, the Yale game was about one guy who kind of stepped up real big time, and that was Nick Timberlake. So what did we see from Nick in that game, kind of having his marquee game of the season?
Well, he looked at the basket and he shot the ball, right? He shot 7 threes, which is the most he's shot in a game all season. And for as good as he's, advertised to be as a shooter, and for as good as he must be in practice because Bill keeps throwing him out there, if he shoots 7 threes, he should at least make 3 of them, maybe 2 of them, right? So I think he just got a lot of clean looks at the basket. He was aggressive. He had 10 shots total, 3 of them coming from inside the 3-point line. So he was trying to be aggressive from all aspects of the field, and he just happened to be hitting shots that night, and it was good. I mean, Kansas for real needed that, and there was a lot of talk after the game about, hey, if we see this Nick Timberlake all season, Kansas is going to be super, super scary. And on a night where, you don't get anything out of KJ and Elmarko, basically, and Furphy's gone, right? We talked about that, why we thought that this could be a big Timberlake game. We were spot on about that. With the absence of Furphy, Timberlake completely stepped up, and he had 13 huge points. He really did.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about him against Wichita State coming up and how that, great game kind of backtracked again, making that game kind of a little bit of a standalone kind of outlier game for Nick Timberlake.
It definitely is right now, yeah.
But yeah, Kansas 75-60 over Yale. Pretty good test before that holiday break for Kansas, and it was a pretty decent game. So overall, it's nice to see Kansas come out with the win in that one. Now it's time to talk Wichita State. Kansas played Wichita State on Saturday inside the T-Mobile Center. It ended up being an 86-67 win. So pretty dominating win over Wichita State. Let's just start with how this game started a little bit. DeJuan Harris came out in this one. Hunter Dickinson had a little mid-range shot to kick off the scoring, but then DeJuan had 2 3-pointers, no hesitation to get the scoring going. What did you like about DeJuan Harris's start, Jackson?
Right off the bat, I mean, basically a message to Wichita State, yes, but a message to everybody. If you're going to sag off, we're taking these. All right. And I mean, we'll talk about Marco a little bit later, but DeJuan right away, they sagged off of both screens. All right, fine, whatever. I'm hitting this. And that's going to be a key component because Dickinson in the Yale game was double teamed when the Yale team got off the bus. They just went straight into the Kansas locker room and had 2 guys on Hunter for about 4 hours. And teams are picking up on that, and it's going to continue to happen, especially in Big 12 play, where there's actually competent defending bigs, right? And if DeJuan needs to be a threat from the 3-point line, even like we were talking about a couple episodes ago, like against Indiana, even on kickouts, like he needs to be a threat to shoot the 3 in all aspects of the Kansas offense. And to get 2 right away, basically within the first 3 minutes of the game, is huge for everybody on the floor. Because if DeJuan's hitting shots, it kind of can relax everybody, right? Because now Kevin doesn't have to do too much. KJ doesn't have to do too much. Hunter can just play his game. And that was really instrumental for KU playing well offensively.
Wichita State in that game yesterday, they went under every single screen, which we've been seeing a lot. They were trapping, double teaming Hunter, clogging the lane on Hunter, like pretty much every team has. And really, DeJuan, that first 3 that he took whenever Wichita State went under the screen and he kind of just was about to go around it, he's like, no, I'm going to just step back and hit the shot. And that is what I think we're going to need to see from DeJuan Harris if Kansas is going to be a national championship type team. He cannot have any sort of thought of not shooting the ball in those situations. And a lot of times you see DeJuan pump fake and drive it, and he hasn't been as efficient shooting those floaters and kind of the scoop layups this year. So, and he's shooting 50% from 3. Like, my God. DeJuan Harris, good to see him get some 3-pointers going early in that game. Just overall, Kansas controlled the game to start. It was a 10-4 game before the bench subbed in around the 13-minute mark. So the scoring was very slow to start. Both teams couldn't really find shots to hit. Kansas was getting some good ones, but they just weren't falling. But still a 10-4 start behind some suffocating defense. And then the bench comes in. Timberlake comes in for Marco. Parker Brown comes in for Hunt. And Furphy comes in for KJ. And with that bench in, the game goes from a 10-4 game to a 14-14 game pretty fast.
Timberlake, I was sitting next to a friend at the game. He's sitting behind me and listens to the show a lot. And Timberlake checks in. He kind of playfully nudges me. He's like, oh, it's your boy, checking in. And I'm like, he does 5 things in like 2 minutes. It's amazing. And as soon as he checks in, immediately the first foul of the game is called on him. 7 minutes into the game, as soon as he gets in, he picks up the first 2 fouls of the entire game. He misses a 3, gives up a shot, and gets the ball poked away on a fast break. That's like 4 different things that happen in 45 seconds. I don't know how everything just happens to Timberlake every time he checks in. It's not even like, some of it's not even his fault at this point. It's just the bad things just happen to find him. And Parker Brown
he's like the center of attention a lot whenever
he really is, man.
For whatever reason.
He's I don't know why. Like even like the ball getting poked, like that's not really his fault. It just, of course, it had to be him taking the ball in transition that gets poked away. Parker was serviceable, as he always is. He had a really nice block. Furphy had a great second half, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, later. But yeah, the bench, it's been like that. It seems like every game where more than one of them checks in and we see the lead squander a bit, which is fine. That's why they're coming off the bench. But come on, like, we're Kansas. Like, you can't have every single game. You can't put your bench in. And I know Bill is thinking about it in the back of his head. Like, all right, if we can at least keep this like a 2 or 3 point lead while these guys are in, like, that'll be a win. That's not going to work all season. There's got to be a second gear that these guys have coming up into 2024.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And, it's 14-14 game with the bench and the starters come back in. And everything kind of turned around for Kansas. Kansas closed out the half on a 29-13 run after it was tied 14-14. And that was sparked by a 7-0 personal run by Elmarko Jackson with the 2 layups and the 3, which we'll talk about later. Makes it a 43-27 game at halftime. Kansas pretty much took control of it with that run at the end. And then to start the second half again, Kansas goes off on a really nice run, a 22-10 run to start the second half. And from there, the game was over. I mean, you saw the last 10 minutes of the game. It was pretty methodical, slow basketball. A lot of the bench guys were in. So it was good to see the bench, come in, be able to utilize those guys and play some walk-ons at the end. And
there we go.
Patrick Cassidy almost, man, had his first career basket, but he got blocked in the corner from 3. I'll say that he was going to make that shot if he got it off, but I was hoping to see that.
Dude, it was good to see the walk-ons. I mean, we have not had a ton of Jankovic action this year, and I missed that, man. I missed seeing Jank come in and chuck up some threes, but yeah, that run that you mentioned by Elmarko, that completely changed the course of the game. Because not only did he go on a self 7-0 run by on his own but he was being aggressive. Like he was taking the ball at the basket, got it in transition multiple times, had one thought to go right at the rim. The scoop jelly layup was extremely impressive. Like that was nasty, Sam. That was kind of disgusting. Hits a 3, gets the dunk in transition, and he was fired up too. That dunk was
electric. It was.
The entire Kansas community kind of took a massive deep breath together of there he is. Elmarko's settling in. That stretch, I'm going to say it, that is going to massively impact the rest of the season for Kansas. Because now I think Elmarko has that not only confidence, but just the trust in the coaches and the trust in the team. All right, go be the X factor now. You've shown us a flash. We've seen flashes all season. His penetration and his ability to get Hunter the ball in the paint is kind of been better than DeJuan's the past couple games. I'm not going to lie, especially when Elmarko's going baseline. Elmarko going baseline is dangerous because he's so much quicker than everybody, and he's able to find Hunter in places that blow my mind still. And to cap that all off, Wichita State has a horrible offense. I mean, they are not good offensively. I don't know what they were running. Their point guard, Xavier Bell, is a former opponent of mine back in the Wichita circuit. And he was leading scoring for them at one point, and in no way should he have been their leading scorer in this game. I don't know what that program is doing right now, but Kansas definitely took advantage of it, and we're hounding the Shockers in the last part of the first half on defense, and they couldn't get anything going.
Yeah, the defensive performance was pretty decent for Kansas in this one, all things considered. I mean, they gave up 67 Wichita State, which isn't great. I think that's actually above Kansas' season average, but a lot of those buckets came in the last 5 or so minutes of the game. But let's just go ahead and talk about Elmarko Jackson a little bit more. He had his first, I would say, he's had some good games, but this was his first true breakout game where it's wow, this guy is really good. Career high 12 points for Elmarko Jackson. We talked about the personal 7-0 run. For me, the thing is, after that 7-0 run, Elmarko Jackson was getting after it. We haven't seen him necessarily really hunt for his shot and just take the ball and go. But after that 7-0 run, that's what he was doing. You have he banged another 3 to start the second half, and he took that, no hesitation, full confidence. And really, I think the biggest play to me is there's this one instance where he was actually handling the ball up the floor. I believe DeJuan was actually in the game still.
Yes, he was. I know what you're talking about.
And he just took the ball and went straight down the floor, blew by everybody, and dumped it off to Dickinson for 2 points. And there's another instance, either it was before or after that, where again, he just took the ball, went after it. He made a really nice move, but he ended up missing the shot. Or no, sorry, ended up turning it over, actually. But just seeing Elmarko Jackson being, that guy that we saw in AAU, being aggressive, wanting to knock down shots, being the X factor, it was great to see. It was great to see from Elmarko Jackson.
Yeah, Sam, you're absolutely right. That 7-0 run he had, that wasn't his only, moments of the game. He played hard the entire game. And like go back to your point of him just taking the ball up the court and going to the basket, even when DeJuan's on the floor. Trust me, DeJuan is very okay with that.
Yeah.
We talk about how great DeJuan is running the offense and how he's one of the best point guards in the country. We're absolutely right about that. But if you can steal a couple possessions with Point El Marco, he can do that. I mean, DeJuan can't go coast to coast as fast as Marco can. He just can't do it. Like that's not in his bag. That's an extra element that Marco brings to this backcourt to where we might see him bring the ball up a good handful more times, even when DeJuan's on the floor. And now with Marco showing this, maybe now Bill can spell DeJuan a couple minutes in the first half, maybe sit him for 2 or 3 and let Marco run the show because he's clearly shown that he's got the ability to do that.
It's important to note during AAU basketball, Marco Jackson was the primary ball handler. Like he was the guy taking it up all the time. The ball was always in his hands. So really, I think another part of just, we've talked about him only playing basketball for 4 years too. And he's been playing basketball those 4 years with the ball in his hands most of the time. He's still learning, I think, how to play off the ball and be that two guard more than just being the point guard. So I think that's another thing that you kind of have to think about as far as Marco Jackson and just his development is he's not necessarily used to not having the ball in his hands all the time. So,
right. No, you're absolutely right. Yep.
And I just wanted to note a couple things that Bill Self said after this game about Marco Jackson. He said that, Marco, for Kansas to be good, he needs to play to his athletic ability. And besides that kind of little stretch there, we haven't really seen that as much this year from Marco Jackson. But, those 2 plays in the first half were really athletic plays. Self said those are kind of plays that you don't coach. Players just make them. And he also said that he just wants Marco Jackson to be aggressive. And that's what we saw in this game. He said he wants him to be one of the 5 rather than the 4 and 1, which,
Right.
we've been talking about it all year, the core 4, and, you got to get 5 through 8 going. If Marco Jackson can become part of the 5, this Kansas team's going to be really dangerous, Jackson, really dangerous.
Bill is like, I love that Bill is saying this because he knows better than anybody. The best version of El Marco is when he's going downhill, not necessarily when he's playing off the ball in a catch and shoot position, running offense. That's not his game. That's never been how he's played. And is he willing to do that? Yes, but you're not going to get the best out of that guy if you're not playing into his strengths. Now, we can't change the offense just to benefit El Marco, right? But there needs to be some sense of 4 possessions here, 6 to 7 possessions here in certain games to where El Marco has plays drawn up for him going downhill, just like to close out the Indiana game.
Yep.
Excuse me. Like we talked about, clearly that trust and confidence is building over these last few games, and it's perfect timing heading right into Big 12 play.
Yeah, and even El Marco said that his confidence is growing, his chemistry with the 4 guys is gaining, so that's good to hear from El Marco himself. Another big kind of development in this game, he had the great play of Marco Jackson, but KJ Adams dominating the glass yesterday was a very, very, very positive development for Kansas. Even though KJ Adams didn't really score it as much in this game, I believe he had 9 points.
Yep.
Yeah, he had 9 points in this one, but 11 rebounds and 5 assists. That's a Draymond Green stat line if I've ever seen one before. And KJ Adams, man, just grabbed
he was great.
those rebounds.
I can't even speak enough about his energy. I mean, he changes the course of I feel like every game we play, because every play he makes is the biggest deal in the world to him. He is equally as excited to make a putback layup as he is to dunk on somebody, and that's why we all love him so much. I mean, he only scored 9 points, but it felt like 15.
3 of them were dunks, right?
Yeah, 3, and those dunks counted for 7, honestly, with the way the crowd reacted to it and the way the team reacts to it. And I was honestly surprised that was his career high in rebounds because of, how much he played the 5 last year, but he was crashing really hard. I mean, again, it helps that you're playing a Wichita State team who's going to miss a ton of shots for you. I could go on for a while about how frustrating that Wichita State offense is to watch because I know a lot of guys on that team, And I just don't understand. I just don't know what they're doing. But yeah, KJ was excellent. Kansas as a whole is boxing out a lot better, I think. It helps. Wichita State doesn't have a big imposing force down low that, Kansas has played multiple of those this season that are like, borderline All-American type, centers. And not playing one, man, Hunter and KJ were boxing out like really well. Hunter doesn't necessarily have to box out a whole lot. And I think he gives up a couple offensive rebounds a game because he doesn't really block out. But man, Kansas was all over the boards. How many offensive rebounds? They had 7 offensive rebounds, which sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, like we had 14, right? So in terms of the rebounding battle, it wasn't close and it never seemed close.
Yeah, the thing with KJ and rebounding the ball, and Self mentioned this after the game, when KJ rebounds it, he can just dribble it up the floor. And
Yep.
Bill Self said that he actually thinks that Kansas is best when KJ Adams brings it up the floor, playing the pace and everything.
Yeah.
Think to last year, who was another guy who was really, really good at this? Jalen.
Jalen Wilson.
He would grab and go and initiate offense and find shooters so well. And now we're seeing KJ kind of do that. And KJ actually did mention after the game that kind of Jay Will has motivated him, and he's kind of looked to Jay Will to kind of do that for this Kansas team. But yeah, I mean, if KJ is grabbing and going like that, you have Hunter Dickinson to trail for
Yep.
3. You have Elmarco Jackson running as fast as he can down the floor. Kevin McCullough, great in transition. And you have a guy like DeJuan who can spot up in the corner. Kansas looks pretty dangerous when KJ brings that ball up the floor, for sure.
Yeah, as long as he's under control and not, trying to do too much so fast, because he is fast. When he's dribbling, going up the court like that, he did it a couple times. Last night we saw it where he'd get a rebound, just go. And I feel like he runs faster than he dribbles sometimes, and he's made a couple errant passes doing that. But if he's dribbling the ball up the floor in control, I can totally see how Bill wants that as how Kansas to attack and transition. Because now what you have is 3 very, very good ball handlers off the ball. And in transition, on a kick, someone is running to close out. And against those 3 guys, you cannot close out too fast, or they are past you in like 0.2 seconds. They're going to go by you. And if you don't close out enough, it's Kevin, it's Elmarco, it's DeJuan. Kevin, I can trust to hit a 3. DeJuan's definitely hitting that. Marco, he just went 2 for 3
Starting to show it.
last night. Kansas is starting to hit some shots. What were 7 for 27 from 3? Not great.
27 3-pointers in this game, Jackson. That has to be, I would say that's Kansas's most this year. I don't have the stat in front of me, but it has to be.
Might also be the worst percentage Kansas has shot this year, 25%. But I'm going to look more into the transition numbers now that Bill has said that, because I think if Kansas can hit transition threes, it might not even matter if they get enough threes in the half court offense, man. It might not even matter.
Yeah, for real. And the biggest thing with KJ that I kind of took away from this as well is who he likes to watch whenever it comes to rebounding and who he likes to play like. Dennis Rodman. How about that, Jackson? Dennis Rodman. Athletic guy like KJ, hard-nosed guy like KJ. KJ said he was his favorite player whenever he was younger. So are we wrong? Maybe with the Draymond Green comps, maybe KJ's more like Dennis.
You know what? I agree. Maybe he is more like Dennis. He might be too good of a passer, but I Dennis being KJ's favorite player does not surprise me at all. The intensity that he brings is very, very Rodman-like. And if he's going to start, I've always wanted him to be like an 8 rebound a game guy. I just think his shoulders are so broad. He's so strong with the ball. If he gets a fingertip on it, no one else should be touching it. So when earlier in this season, we would talk about it a ton of like, how is he only getting 3 or 4 rebounds? He was guarding a lot more perimeter guys back then. And I think now, instead of, kind of trailing back, I think Bill has talked to him like, hey, if Bill's telling the media that he likes KJ bringing the ball up in transition, he's obviously talked to KJ about it. And the message is successfully translated to KJ. And you're right. We're going to see more of it. Totally.
KJ actually in his interview after the game kind of laughed about it. He said that they've been putting that in, him grabbing and going or sorry, they've been putting in him taking the ball up the floor in practice and stuff a lot more, so he will rebound. So it gives him that, hey, you know, if I go get this ball, I get to bring it up the floor. That's kind of fun. So I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, KJ Adams, absolute beast on the boards yesterday. Career high 11 rebounds, which tops his career high of 9 rebounds, which came, I believe, against Omaha in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. But good to see from KJ to get that career high. Now it's time to talk about a couple more things to close. We already talked about the Nick Timberlake disaster class, so we're gonna just kind of gloss over that. I mean, he literally did nothing yesterday. He came in and picked up 2 fouls immediately in the first half, and then in the second half he comes in again. He misses 2 threes and airballs in mid range. So that was pretty yikes. But we did have some a little bit of positive developments from Furphy and Jamari in this game. Furphy didn't shoot it great. I
He
believe
shot it a lot.
he did shoot it a lot, though. He was 2 of 6, 1 of 5 from 3, 7 points. But all the shots he took, I think, were good shots, and I thought he played really well.
I am totally okay with him chucking, especially
Chuck away, Johnny.
if he's coming off the bench and Timberlake's going to give you a goose egg, like, hey, like if Johnny, I would love seeing Johnny shoot it. Like, come in, be the hot hand off the bench, because Kansas currently does not have that right now. If you like someone come in, come get 10 off the bench. Bill is basically begging anybody off the bench to come in and score points. And Furphy, I mean, after missing a game too, I think that had to do with, I mean, you miss a game, you go home for a while, you come back over the holidays, you try to get back into practice, boom, you're at a neutral site. That's I mean, that's not going to equal a great shooting game for anybody. And the fact that he probably knew that coming in and was still going out and shooting, those shots are going to fall, especially at home, when his 3-point percentage is really solid. A lot of those makes have come at home. So in home games and Big 12 play, Furphy is going to be very, very vital in giving a lot, like I'm saying, like double digit is what we should be expecting from Furphy in these Big 12 conference games, especially at home, because he's coming in, he's going to shoot 5 or 6 times. I feel like that's a given going forward. If he's going to do that against Wichita State, I feel like that's going to continue. And he's going to be coming off of screens, because he's also a guy on a kick out. Kansas doesn't have a ton of kick out 3-point shooters. You and I are sitting here begging DeJuan to shoot these. Furphy's going to shoot that every single time. And he's kind of the only guy that's really his game.
He has no thought whatsoever. Like,
right.
If he gets it from beyond 3, he's shooting it. And I
no
like
memory.
that with this Kansas team. I like it a lot.
Good shooters have no memory, and Johnny Furphy exemplified that last night.
Another guy, Jamari McDowell, played pretty well last night. He had 6 points in this game, 1 of 3 from the field, but he hit a lot of free throws. Jamari McDowell, man, he just really continues to impress me. 8 minutes in this game. He was actually -2, which I'm pretty sure is the first time he's ever been minus this year. But the whole bench in this game was minus. Johnny Furphy was -4, and Nick Timberlake was a whopping -11 in this game. So really, I like Jamari. He continues to just kind of do his thing out there. He never, like, Jamari doesn't make mistakes, like he doesn't come in and do anything wrong. And I think whenever you have a guy like Nick Timberlake who seems to come in and make all the mistakes, it's pretty positive for Jamari to kind of be that guy. But yeah, that's really,
he guarded the ball really well. His one make was off of a putback on a rebound. And we've talked about all year how he's great at crashing, and he's a very, very good guard rebounder. And his 2 points were off of a putback layup, off of a miss.
Yeah, very nice stuff there for Jamari. Kind of just want to close out a little bit now. Kevin McCullough, obviously DeJuan Harris, Hunter Dickinson, they all did their thing yesterday. Hunter Dickinson, 22 points and 13 rebounds. That's all American stuff from him. He also had 3 steals and a block. DeJuan Harris, only 6 points with those 2 threes in the first half, but he had 9 assists. Can't complain about that. 2 steals as well in this game. And it was 9 assists to 2 turnovers. So really protected the ball. And then you have Kevin McCullough, another 20-point game, 7 rebounds. And really, even Bill Self said this after the game. like you don't think Kevin McCullough has done much. Like I don't think he had a great game. And then you look at the box score and he's got 20 points and 7 rebounds. Like I mean,
Oh yeah,
that's what good players do, Jackson. They just put up numbers even if they're not playing all that well. Oh,
that's what good players do. Kevin did not
and
go.
also Kevin has made 22 straight free throws. 22 straight, was 8 for 8 yesterday. So
I was gonna ask about that. He's in my head. I'm like, I feel like he's been super money from the line recently. Yeah, he definitely has. He didn't shoot well, and this happened in the Indiana game too, where he doesn't shoot well from the field, but good players find ways to score. He gets to the line better than almost anybody in America right now.
I would
I
say
mean,
better than anybody in America.
it's been wildly impressive how easy it is for him to get to the foul line. And that's so important, especially that he's hitting him. Because you watch a lot of March Madness games, and a lot of the times you don't end up shooting how your team's been shooting all season. Say you've got a 41% three-point shooting team, that's probably not going to be sustained through March. And so a lot of what these successful teams have is a guy who can just get to the foul line and hit free throws. Like Caleb Love is a great example of this and why Arizona is really good. He is also not super great from the field, but he's super good at getting to the free throw line and he's a great free throw shooter. So he might only make 4 shots, but he's going to end up with 24 because he's going to get so many from the line. That's what Kevin McCullough has been doing. And he's not having a bad like field goal shooting year by any means. Just in this game and in the Indiana game, he shot under 40% from the field, honestly. But it doesn't matter because he's so aggressive getting to the rim that he's just making money from the stripe right now.
Yep, he's actually number 29 in all of the NCAA in free throw attempts. He's got 88 free throw attempts. He's hit 75 of 88 in 13 games. So that's pretty impressive stuff. The highest free throws attempted is it. I'm going to let you guess. He is a 7-footer. Who do you think has the most free throws attempted this year?
Zach Edey.
Yeah, 138, Jackson.
I'm a
Like Kevin
genius.
McCullough
Wow.
gets to the line a lot, but Zach Edey has.
That doesn't count. He doesn't count. That's so different. That's so different.
I just want to point that out. That's a little insane, but
That is ridiculous. My goodness.
that last person we wanted to touch on now is Hunter Dickinson. Turned in a really good game after a not so good game against Yale. And I wanted to talk about what Bill Self said before the Wichita State game to kind of talk about Hunter a little bit. And, we've been talking all year about Hunter Dickinson. Teams are going to play to stop him. They're going to clog the lane. And I really liked what Bill Self said about this situation. He said that this is sports. Like people are going to take away your best players. In the NFL, teams scheme to stop Travis Kelce. They're not going to let Travis Kelce beat them. And the NFL teams scheme to stop Tyreek Hill. Like you don't want Tyreek Hill beating you. It's the same thing. Teams are going to scheme to stop Hunter Dickinson. But Bill Self says, even with that, with the way teams are scheming, he still thinks there's a way for Hunter to get 20 a game with the way that teams are guarding him. And I agree. Like, I agree with that. It's going to take a couple of things for Hunter. And he talked about this. Bill talked about this. He's got to get deeper post position. He really likes playing in that mid-post area. And whenever you play in that mid-post area, it's a lot easier for double teams to come, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're hanging out in that area, and it shrinks the floor a lot. So, excuse me. While Self says that, they need to make a couple adjustments for him to be better in that mid-post area, he still has to post deeper and get that deeper position. So whenever the help comes, there's more spacing and he could even shoot over the top if he needs to. But I think that's just a big thing with Hunter. I know he was maybe a little frustrated going into the break with how things have gone the last few games, but teams are going to scheme to stop him. And that's just how it is. Kansas has got to find a way to counteract that. And we talk about this and he's still putting up, 20 and 13. So
Right. Yep. He's still been All-American level this season, no question about it. What I want to see more of personally is, a post up and then a kick out and then a repost, because here's what happens a lot. DeJuan dumps it into him on the block. He catches it. DeJuan's man is already starting to head towards Hunter. Hunter puts his head down, takes his 2 dribbles that he does, and that can get tapped by that guard, right? So what I would like to see is Hunter catches that, takes a dribble, lets the double come, kicks it back to Dewan. Dewan doesn't necessarily shoot it, but now Dewan's guy has to reclose out back to him. Now what Hunter needs to do is reposition himself way deeper, like you just said. Now he's like deep on the block. Now give it to him a second time. Now that double is way less likely to come, and that makes it a way easier world for Hunter Dickinson to live in. And a lot of this is going to be Bill Self just, being a genius and trying to draw up ways to get him open out of whether it's out of timeouts, inbounds plays, half court sets. Bill's going to get creative with trying to find ways to get Hunter the ball because, even all the great bigs that Coach Self's had, none of them have been doubled as much as Hunter's been doubled this season. And
it's not even the doubling. It's just the fact that teams are literally just clogging the lane because
not even, you're right. It's not, it's like a horde of guys. They just all kind of come in. It's honestly like all 5 guys seem to be in the lane every time he has the ball. It's a crazy thing. But yeah, I think him kicking it back out and then repositioning himself, I think that's going to get him so many easy buckets. And that's so tough to defend and double team, especially if Mr. Harris is going to be knocking down these 3-pointers. Like I'm telling you, man, we gotta hit these outside shots.
Absolutely. So that's all we got for the Wichita State game. 86-67 win for Kansas in the T-Mobile Center. The Jayhawks are now 12-1 heading in to the non-conference play. And you mentioned, Bill Self being a genius and having to scheme a little bit for Hunter. Kansas now has a full week off before they play TCU on Saturday. So it gives Kansas a lot of opportunity to implement some things that they haven't practiced much. Bill Self said that this week into conference play is much needed. So I really think it's going to be good for Kansas. And yeah, like we said, 12-1 heading into non-conference play, wins over number 5 UConn, number 6 Tennessee, number 8 Kentucky, and the lone loss to Marquette. Another couple good wins against Indiana and Missouri. If you want to count Yale, I guess you can count that as a good win because they might be an NCAA tournament team. But we talked about it. Kansas on pace once again for another number 1 seed with this non-conference slate. And again, 86-67 over Wichita State. Coming up next, TCU. We'll see you at the under 4, y'all.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook for this college basketball season. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks and predictions throughout the college basketball season. And we are going to have special offers for you, the listeners and the viewers on the Field of 68 each and every week during the season. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FIELD1500 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager on BetMGM Sportsbook. Here's what you got to do. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD1500. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FIELD1500 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient for me when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly. When crossing state borders, just log into your existing account instead of having to create new accounts in each state that you go to. And most importantly, I got to let you know, we do have some fun stuff coming up for this college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, my personal favorite, parlay odds boosts. So download the BetMGM app today.
All right, everybody, we are back here on the a Kansas Hoops podcast here at the Under 4 Timeout. And we're going to be giving you a New Year's resolution for each of us revolving around Kansas basketball. Jackson, go ahead and take it away with your New Year's resolution, which I think is rather hilarious.
Well, my New Year's resolution is kind of a 2-parter. So I need to stop expecting so much from Nick Timberlake. I've been hard on him this year because I've been expecting him to be a 10 to 12 game scorer, 40% 3-point shooter like he was at Towson. Well, Bez, apparently Kansas is a bit different than Towson. And it hasn't exactly translated for Timberlake. And his role from now on needs to just be come in, shoot 3 threes. If you make one, that's awesome. But that's all we need from you. So going forward, I just need to accept that Timberlake might have been a miss. It might have been a miss, and anything that we get from him going forward is icing on the cake. It's just gravy. Anything past 5 points in a single game that he gives Kansas. I mean, Kansas is 12-1 and hasn't gotten anything out of their second best transfer. And you know what? It might be okay because Kansas has a good solid group of 5 to 6 guys who can go really far in March. And you know what, Nick Timberlake, just come in, just hit a couple threes. That's what we need. That's my resolution. That's all I'm going to expect from Timberlake. And I'm not going to get mad at him for sucking anymore. And anything he gives more than 5 points, I'm going to be thrilled. That's my resolution.
All right, so I'm going to build off of your resolution. And I'm going to have my resolution be for Bill Self. And I want Bill Self to just have full trust in Jamari McDowell. Just let the dude go out there and play and do what he does, because Jamari McDowell, in my opinion, is a better option for Kansas than Nick Timberlake at this point. And I just think that Jamari McDowell is a gamer. Like, he fits this team so well with just his attitude, the way he plays. So, Bill, just trust my guy Jamari. Let him be the second guy off the bench. Let Furphy, come in, do his thing, but let Jamari be that guy over Timberlake. See what happens. See what happens.
Furphy and Jamari can have a great yin and yang, where Furphy brings a ton of offense off the bench, and Jamari is objectively a better defensive player than Nick Timberlake. And I think that's what Kansas needs more than anything off the bench, is a guy who can come in and be just like DeJuan Marker out on the perimeter, hounding guys, making guards' lives miserable. I think that's what Kansas needs. You're right.
Absolutely.
Oh,
well, there you have it, y'all. 2 New Year's resolutions from Jackson and I. Thank you for joining us on episode 13 of The Hum. We will be back to preview Big 12 conference play on Thursday. So look out for that episode 14, to take us into the next part of the season. I don't know about you, Jackson, but I am really, really excited for Big 12 play this year with all the new teams. Houston, BYU is having a hell of a season.
Yeah.
They're like number 5 in KenPom, which is ridiculous.
They have been all year too. I think they're 14th in the AP right now.
They're number 4 in KenPom. What in the hell?
The Big 12 is already a better conference, adding these teams. And shoot, they get Arizona next year too. But I'm so excited to play Houston. I don't know why. I especially coming off of last year where they beat us out for the 1 seed, or the 1 seed that we wanted. Spoiled ass fans that we are. And it's because they don't play anybody, right? They have a weak schedule. They don't get any quad 1 wins. Welcome to the jungle, Houston. You are in it now. Let's roll. Let's see who's better.
Yeah, Houston's still undefeated, by the way, at 13-0. So I'm interested to see how they fare in Big 12 play. And I think it's also pretty interesting that Kansas is the 3rd best team on KenPom in the Big 12, because you got Houston and BYU in front of them. I will bet anybody, if anybody is listening to this, I will bet you thousands of dollars that Kansas wins the Big 12 this year. Thousands.
I may have a bet of multiple hundreds on this exact thing that we are speaking of. It's like BYU. I think they're a good team, but
I love BYU. I'm not hating on BYU. I love them.
You haven't played in the Big 12 yet. Like they might finish top 5 in the conference. I kind of expect them to, because I think Baylor and Texas are pretty beatable this year. But outside of Houston, I think it's going to be Kansas-Houston at the 1-2 pretty much the entirety of 2024.
I agree. Well, we kind of went on a bit of a tangent there, but thank you guys again for joining us on this episode of The Hum. We will see you next time.